All right, 17 state attorneys general are banding together to start an anti-bullying campaign. And it's an anti-bullying campaign against the Biden administration. They've sent a letter to the Biden administration calling on them to immediately cease any further actions designed to intimidate parents from expressing their opinions on the education of their children. Now, this is being led by the Indiana Attorney General, Todd Rokita. The state AGs want the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to immediately withdraw his October 4th memo, which we've discussed quite frequently here. That memo went to the FBI and to U.S. attorneys that was sent after the National School Boards Association reached out to President Biden about what they equated to domestic terrorism. That is, concerned parents coming out to school board meetings. Joining me now to tell us more about this 17-state effort is the Attorney General leading this effort, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita. General Rokita, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Glad to be with you. I'm smiling and shaking my head because, only in a Biden administration can you let the Taliban back in a country that you kicked out 20 years ago and call them partners and call our own parents the terrorists. You laugh so you don't cry, but it is truly disturbing what's going on. And that's why I'm so happy to have with us 17 states that are all leaders and have a great attorneys general who are going to let parents know that they have someone in their corner when it comes to raising their kids.
Well, and I've read your letter, and the two main points I want to talk about that you bring up in the letter. Number one, and I've raised this as well, that this whole call is based upon a flawed premise. Explain that.
Well, yeah, the premise is that the parents are doing anything wrong, or that the parents are doing something wrong. I mean, that's probably, this is a free country, and this is them interacting with their government. If it's a public school board, and these are public schools, that is a government school. And you have got to be transparent if you're running that kind of government program. You've got to be accountable. And that's all these parents are doing. There hasn't been one documented instance from the National School Board Association or the group that, that was the group that wrote to Biden and said, oh, my Lord, we're worried about our teachers and we're worried about our school board officials from these terrorist parents who are coming in. And they made it sound like they were, there were fisticuffs going on and there were guns and bullets and all these things and people were dead. No, they came to a school board meeting and some may have raised their voices. I don't know, but there's no crime in raising your voice. There's no crime in being emotional for your children. You can't disrupt. You can't stop. You can't be violent in any way. But then again, there are laws for that. You don't need the DOJ in there when you have 10,000 people a day creating a federal crime when they cross the southern border, when you can loot in stores up to $1,000 in California, at least, and not be charged, when you can beat up on a police officer, when you can start fires. I mean, if the DOJ wants to get involved with something, maybe they ought to focus on how to help local law enforcement alleviate those problems.
Yeah. When I read the letter from the National School Boards Association to the president, and I looked through, asking the question, where's the evidence that parents are the equivalent to domestic terrorists? And it reminded me of kids on the school ground, on the playground, and they get into a name calling match, and one of the students gets upset about it because they called him a name, and instead of going to the teacher on duty at the playground, they go to the National Guard. Calling for the National Guard to come on and clear out the playground. I mean, that's the equivalent here. It's overreach. Let me move to the next point because I want you to address this because I think this is what's so important. It violates the First Amendment rights of parents. Speak to that.
Right. So again, this has to do with government schools. It has to do with public schools. Okay. So the First Amendment talks about the fact that government cannot silence you. All right. It's a cherished right. It's after the Second Amendment, probably the most important amendment for me. So these school boards, if it's a public school, are the government. They cannot silence you. That's the point. They cannot hinder free speech. So we really have to make sure our state laws are also intact here. For example, even in Indiana, You can attend a school board meeting. They're public meetings, so you can see what's going on. But unless the school board has a specific policy to allow parent comment, they don't have to let parents comment. And so I think you're going to see, and I hopefully it's in Indiana as well, lawmakers start to realize, look, we got to let these parents raise their children, and they're being in charge of their education as part of raising your child. I have a more sinister view, Tony, about this than maybe you do. I think this is what leftists do, whether you want to call them socialists, communists, dictators, whatever. Look, if you're going to be that kind of regime, you cannot let the family units run the show, right? If you have a free republic, you absolutely need a family unit to be the foundation of society. So they try to divide and break that up. And when they say, like this McAuliffe fella in Virginia saying, well, parents have no right to be telling teachers what to teach. Well, they have every right. They have the primary responsibility for their child, including their education. But socialists and leftists hate that, because when they divide up the family, they're able to let the state come in and do that work. And that's when you
point out in your letter that the Supreme Court has even recognized, the courts have recognized that fact, that it is the parents and the guardians that have the primary responsibility. Look, before we run out of time here, General Rokita, voter suppression, voter intimidation is a big deal. That's prosecuted, it's gone after. This is a form of intimidation and suppression of the First Amendment. Are there legal actions that can be taken here?
I think there are. In fact, just about a little bit before I got on with you, I saw that there's a group of parents, I think it was Virginia, that have filed a lawsuit on First Amendment grounds. We're going through that right now. You have to have an injury first. And The question here would be, is the threat of intimidation alone enough of an injury? But certainly if the DOJ started coming in and doing things, there'd be much more of an injury and much more of a case. And these 17 states, we're going to be looking out for all that. And ultimately, the local law enforcement who Garland threatens to work with, I think are going to be for these parents, certainly the sheriffs. And so if you have immediate injuries, in addition to a lawsuit, maybe you should talk to your local sheriff as well.
Well, and we're going to ask our listeners to call in with those. General, we're out of time. Always great to talk with you. Thanks for leading the effort.
Thank you.
Stick with us, folks.